Hi, I'm the man on the mic.
And I'm the guy on the bike.
And this is the Velo29 podcast. Good morning, Rich.
Hi, Joe. Morning, mate.
Good morning. I know, you're not quite ready for it, but I'm donning on the Christmas hat. I've got the jumper on. The jingle bells are ringing. It's time for the Christmas podcast episode. Woo!
At least one of us made the effort, eh?
Ho, ho, ho. Merry Christmas to you, Richard Williamson. How are you, sir? I hope you're on the good list. Well done. How's that?
I think I should be on the good list, shouldn't I?
Yeah, I think after all you've done, mate, for the whole for the whole of the cycling community, I reckon you're on the good list. I don't know if I am. I've sat on my bum for 8 months.
You've done your bit. You've done the pod, haven't you? You kept me going.
Done the pod, done the quiz, done a book. Yeah, I have done
Yeah.
a few things.
Been,
Anyway, so I guess we'll have a little look back, and
that's the plan, isn't it? A bit of Christmas special, and a bit of a look back on some highs and I don't know. Up to you. It looks good. Looks good.
Does it? Oh, really?
Pass it to me. I'll pass it here. I'll put it on.
I wish I could pass it over. That would be awesome, wouldn't it? Wouldn't that be clever? We should have done that. We should have planned for you to have one, and then I could have gone like that.
That would, yeah. We're not that technically advanced, are we?
So yeah, go on.
So yeah, Christmas special. We wanted to look back on sort of. Well, we've got a bit of news first, haven't we? And it's not.
It's not great news, I'm afraid.
For the benefit of everyone who's listening, we're recording this at 12:15 on Thursday. So Matt Hancock's just addressed the House and talking about the tiers. So we'll come on to that. So how we're going to tackle the daisy chain, and then
we'll tackle the daisy chain. We'll have a look back, and we'll just kind of review the year, I guess, a little bit, really, shall we?
Exactly, that's the plan, isn't it? Yeah.
Brilliant stuff. So let's start with the bad news. And where are we at with regards to tier 3 and all that palaver and the daisy chain and everything else that you want to do?
We knew, I think 2 weeks ago when we recorded that pod, that we had to get Teesside and the Northeast out of tier 3 to be able to do the daisy chain, and we hung on until today, and of course that hasn't happened. So the daisy chain is a Teesside charity, and whilst people outside the immediate area are probably aware of it, the guys who do the event and support the charity are based in the Northeast, and that's all tier 3. So we looked at, could we move it outside of tier 3 into tier 2, which is some of County Durham, Yorkshire, maybe not Durham, but certainly Yorkshire, and not really, because the people who live in tier 3 are not allowed to attend the event and
to move out.
We have to be responsible on that. We can't we know everyone's postcode. We can't turn a blind eye to people traveling and that kind of thing. So unfortunately there just isn't a way to make this festive sportive work this year. So we've got 53 entrants. They've all paid £30 each. That's comes to £1,500. Typically we generate about £2,500 for the charity. So the 2 years that we've done it, that's roughly what we've done. So what we're asking people is, unless they really need to get their money back, leave it with us. Next week, at the beginning of next week, we'll make that donation for the total of all those entry fees. 100%, we'll make that donation to the charity, and we'll also top it up a bit. So I'm thinking, we've only just heard the news, but I'm thinking something like Velo29 will give £2.50 per entrant on top of what you guys are giving as well, maybe a little bit more, and that'll mean the charity will get a large percentage of the money that they would have got, and they can still do. It's all charities need more money now than they normally get, and they're getting less. So I think it's really important. So guys, unless go out on that day, ride your bike in your small groups in your areas and celebrate the event in the same way, send us some pictures, send us your Strava, all that kind of thing would be really great to have, but we can't pitch up and do the event. So if you can support us that way, it'd be super grateful.
So that's their way of supporting, by kind of leaving the the money with you, and you're being able to donate that to the charity.
Yeah, 100%. We won't take anything off it, of course. We'll just give it all straight to the charity. And of course, if you were maybe holding on to see what happened, and you can of course still donate to the charity as well. So we normally get 220, 230 people doing the daisy chain. We're only up to 50. So guys, if you were going to ride and you were holding on, make at least a percentage of what you were going to pay for your entry fee towards the charity, and maybe we can even make more money than we normally would do, and that'd
be
great.
Amazing, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Tough times for everybody, but if we can just push that extra mile, I think that's going to make a difference. So
I think so. Yeah. And we had a great new route as well. I've done loads of work on the new route. I was dead excited about that. But well, if we're working on our Klondike Grand Prix, and we're going to do a sportive on the Saturday, which nobody knows about, and that route would be the short/medium of the new Klondike Sportive. So we'll go to Saltburn, down the hill to the sea, and we'll climb. There's a brutal climb which hardly anybody knows out of Skinning Grove if you're local, and it's just the hardest climb. I don't think any of our Sportive riders will have been up it, so we'll go up there. So it wasn't a fruitless exercise, but we'll roll that out in this.
Talking about hoping they're not fruitless exercises, this podcast we have done 7 months now. I thought I'd have a little look back, Rich, and see where we began. We began on the 5th of May recording. I think the first podcast went out on the 8th. Wow. That seems like a long time ago now, doesn't it?
It is, isn't it? In a normal year, you've had the summer, you've done everything, you're in the winter. That's like a big period of time. But this year, when we started it, we were in lockdown and staring at a rather blank events future, weren't we?
Calendar, yeah, empty. I remember going onto my wall planner in about end of May and just doing that literally across the whole of the wall planner and thinking, oh my goodness, that's my year's stuff. And when you wanted to do the podcast, what did you have in mind? What was it? Just a short thing? Was it something that would last all year?
We people who listen to the first ones will remember I wanted to do a podcast for a long time.
Yeah. Well, we talked about it for a couple of years, hadn't we?
Yeah, and I just thought it was something that was. We talked in the beginning about we miss the interaction with our riders, and the podcast filled that gap at the time. So, and also super busy, and especially around events. So it's not the most onerous thing in the world to do, but you've got a dedicated time, haven't you? Both of us have got to be available, and the editing.
And it takes a little bit of technology, which both of us aren't very good at. So,
yeah. So it's something we wanted to do for a long time, and time at that moment allowed us to do it. But when we got busy, we got back into events, didn't we? And we kept doing it through then. And I think it's something that, in some shape or form, we'll do for a long time, because we love that interaction, don't we? And this is part of that.
And I was, like I said, listening back this morning just to kind of get an idea of where we've come, and it's quite an interesting journey when you listen to some of the podcasts, and we're kind of not sure what's going on. We don't know whether things are going to change. We don't know if events are going to happen, and then it kind of gets moved back more and more, and then we find 3-4 months down the line we're still in that same place. And then one of my highlights was the Tour of the Peak, because that was, of all the events this year, the one I got to do with you guys and actually turn up and host an event.
Yeah, and that event will be one that I think, looking back over our 10 years of doing Velo29 events, there's some really standout ones.
Yeah,
that will really be one of them, because it was, the anticipation building up to that was enormous, and because we'd done so much work to make it COVID safe and all of those new things that we brought in. And the nervousness in the lead up to that event, the amount of work we had to put in, and the nervousness about, would it be okay? Is it appropriate to do it? Is it safe? And it went so brilliantly. It was. I was
listening back to it this morning, and you were absolutely exhausted.
Always, yeah.
So we if you get to listen to it, folks, listen back. It's episode 19, I think it was, or series 2, episode 9. Have a listen, because I took my phone with me and we recorded interviews, didn't we?
Yeah,
And
no.
one of the first interviews that goes out is me and Rich. And Rich, you just sounded done.
I
I mean,
was.
I've never heard or seen you kind of broken. And
Yeah.
you just seemed completely. I was almost expecting you to turn around and say, "Do you know what? I ain't doing any more events. This is the last one I'm ever gonna." I really did. I really did, because you were spent, and I mean completely.
That continued for we'd done the Freedom to Ride, and there
Yeah.
it is. We had to get the name in.
Do you know what? I'm going to be loaded when I get all my royalties in
I'm
on
gonna
this
get
one.
you a T-shirt made up.
Please do. Please do. Joe said, "Freedom to ride." Let's do it. Let's do it.
We'd done the Freedom Ride, and they were great fun, and they eased us into the event, and we did that to get people back into it, but also to get us back into it as well, because we'd had that long time off, and
Yeah.
and doing that was really the right idea to do them. But then the Tour of the Peak, and then the events that followed right up into the Great York. I mean, this is I sometimes question myself, but we'd had such a hard time, and then we went and did a brand new Sportive that we didn't have to do. Middle of October, the Great Yorkshire Sportive, and to find that I don't know where it comes from. It's either madness or some. I think I always say tenacity is one of my best qualities. But we established that, and that's a great event that'll last forever now. And it's extended our season. And I think I'll look back at when we do that event next year and think, how did we find the enthusiasm to do that? Because that period of time, and that's the only time in all our time of doing it that I did actually question, will this continue? Because it was so hard, and it's always been hard. It got so much harder, and we didn't know where it was going to go. But of course, the answer to that was absolutely yes.
It's interesting how the word legacy is kind of bandied around a lot more these days, isn't it, than I remember. But in a way, looking back on 2020, we all need to have something to say, well, at least that came out of it, at least that was the legacy. And I'm hoping that maybe society is slightly more aware of each other. I'm hoping that we've become maybe a little bit more kind of selfless.
Nice.
But also these little things that come out of it, for you, the new sporties, for me, some books and things, it's kind of part of saying, okay, it wasn't a complete and utter write-off.
It hasn't been, has it? And we won't get into the terrible side of it and then the deaths and that kind of thing. But I hear loads of people saying 2020 is a year I just want to forget it. But for us, actually, I'm really proud of how it went. And I wouldn't say it's been a good year, but we've done loads of stuff. We've progressed, we've learned stuff, we've changed into be better, and it's great. And when you look through the pods, and I think especially those early ones, I'll listen to them in years to come, and they'll really like a reminder. Because I was looking at them, and it kind of like we started low down, didn't we? We didn't know where we were going, and we chatted about how Velo29 all began, and that was lovely, and it was jolly. But there's a tone of it of like
there's a kind of almost resigned tone, isn't there?
Yeah, there is. But then that first series, we do one called "The Bikes Are Back in Town," and that was 1st of July, and that was when we started to get sight of being we were there at that point. We were saying like we will be able to do events again in the near future. Because it was very late August when we did the first Freedom to Ride. But there's a few up and downs there, isn't there? We have early June, the future of Sportives, where I remember you were asking me about how do we think events will ever be the same again? And we were saying things like, I don't think they will. No, I think we'll have events, but I don't think they'll be the same.
And we were talking about companies that we're not going to survive this. And I was asking you honestly, are you going to get through this? And you were saying, hopefully, but I mean, it really was a kind of question mark over everything. And for me personally, and again, I'm not even sure now, but my career in events was kind of like, is it going to continue?
Yeah. It has changed, hasn't it? I was listening to podcast last weekend, and it was from some people involved in the arts, and they were coming back to some Christmas activities in London. So, and one of the big theatres, they put a lot of distancing in place, and they were talking about how it would work, what the challenges were, how great it was to be getting back, and it was identical to the conversations that we were having back in July. August and September, and there they were having. It was identical. If you just changed the word musical to cycling, it could have been us.
Yeah, exactly.
And I thought that was really, and I guess like pubs and restaurants, they came back before we did, so they'll have. And I was aware of it at the time. They'll have faced into all of those challenges even before we did, didn't they? Letting people in, spreading the chairs out, and opening after being closed for several months, and regaining the momentum and stuff.
But you said yourself, I've heard it in a number of different pods that I was listening back to this morning, that you will do things differently, and that's really interesting, isn't it? It's not the case of, right, 2020 is done, we're going back to what we do, and we're going back to how we did it, and that's not going to be the case. And even though, yes, we've been forced into changing, actually some of those changes are really positive.
Yeah, it's necessity, the mother of invention, I suppose, and all that kind of thing. But like the scheduled start times. People like efficiency these days, don't they? We always, and you could never like ask the masses, but we always thought that the ramming everybody in and setting them all off together was exciting. But then, but actually, that translated into some people stood in the cold for half an hour on the start line because they needed to go at the front, and
because they were ready to go and the others weren't.
And they might have traveled 3 hours, and that might mean, well, I want to start at the beginning, so I've got to get up at 4 a.m. rather than I could get up at 5, and all of that kind of thing. And we really, it's the scheduled start times really makes so much sense. And for us as well, we've managed to restructure how we operate at the beginning of an event and deploy resources more efficiently, and the whole day goes way smoother because of that.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I was having a conversation with somebody else about the fact, what would this pandemic look like without technology? Do you know what I mean?
That's a good question.
Yeah, because technology has, in some ways, kept us going. It's connected us. We've been able to do Zoom. We've been able to do, all this kind of stuff. Keep in touch with people. You've been able to do your staggered start times because you can use technology in order to do so. Do you know what I mean? How would you have done that otherwise? Do you know what I mean?
I was, even in a slightly different context, I was thinking about that, and rolling out the vaccine so quickly. How long in time? How far back in time would you have had to have go that wouldn't be the case? And it might be.
I don't think it's that far back. I don't think
2 decades.
Maybe 20 years maximum. Maybe even 10 years that they wouldn't have been able to do it in the speed and the way in which they're doing it now because of technology. And that's interesting, isn't it?
I remember even mid-noughties when I used to live in France in the apartment with some various people, and there was 2 Polish guys, and they used to talk back home on Skype, and Skype had just come out then. This is 2005, 6, 7, and it was rubbish. They used to be screaming down it constantly, and they would like some Polish broadcasters interfering with the signal and things like that. And we couldn't have done this sort of thing. And that's it seems like
Rich,
that's only
not that long ago that we
ago.
had the dial-up tone, and you have to
early
wait
noughties.
And I got so excited about having a USB stick which had 2 megabytes on it or something. You know what I mean?
It's a huge amount. It's like half a picture now.
And yet now, and technology has moved on. And I'm not saying we wouldn't have coped with the pandemic 20 years ago, but it would have been very, very different. The argument may be that we may not have had a pandemic in the same way 20 years ago.
Well, we might have all been more disciplined and stayed at home, and it might have been all right then, mightn't it?
Well, there you go. we possibly would have done as we're told, but maybe not. So what would you say? We talked about legacy, the word legacy. What would you say is the legacy from 2020 other than this pandemic for you from a business perspective?
I think we've always been proud of what we've done, and we've always felt that in terms of event organizers, we're up there. We're the only ones who are diverse as we are, and we're the only ones who are I don't know what you call a proper company, but are genuinely cyclists and genuinely care. And I think we've all, bizarre as it seems, all of what is good about what we do has come together this year. And we've dug deep. We've had to ask people who buy tickets to ride in our events to be patient and to build and to rely upon that trust. And we've seen that, and I've learned that, you know, the dynamic of the business, I understand it more now, more than I used to, and I can see what's good about it and what we should have changed. And I think it's quite rare when you have like I don't know, proper company isn't a good terminology, but usually you get like a cottage industry where you go to a cafe and there's the guy who owns it and his wife or an assistant or something, and they're what you get, but it's very sort of cottagey, isn't it? And then you don't really get something in the middle that is, and then you go to the big company where it's faceless and you've just got some employees who don't really care so much, and the guy's sat somewhere earning the money. And I think that we are in that middle where it's a proper company, but you get to see us, you get to see me, you get to talk to me, you get to tell me what you like and don't like about it, and you can. And the pod's been part of that as well. And I think I've appreciated I always used to say I've got to turn up at the events, and my wife would say, why? It's a small event, it goes fine, why do you have to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and go there? I can't really put my finger on it, but I have to go there. And I think I understand that more now. It's not the running of it, because the guys do a great job. It's that the events are largely part of me, and I didn't blow my own trumpet, but I
think the word you're looking for is connection.
You're right. Yeah.
It's helping you to connect with the people that you work for, so to speak, and the people that come and take part of your event. But also it's helping you connect with why you do what you do. Do you know what I mean? So it's connecting with the cyclist within you. It's connecting with your history. You know, as a cyclist, it's connecting with the industry of cycling. Do you see what I mean? So I would say the word is connection. And for me, I think that's probably the word that comes out of this year in general, you know, not just from a business perspective. I think people have tried and been successful in connecting, either connecting with who they are as people, and it's either brought the worst or the best out in them, but also connecting with the people around them. I mean, for me, I'm an extrovert, as you know, and I need lots of people around me, but I hadn't realized how few of my neighbors I actually knew.
Right. Do you know them better now?
Or? Now I do, yeah, because we've been looking after each other and doing shopping and all that kind of stuff, and making sure everybody's all right. And so I think for me, the word that I would bring from 2020 is connection.
Well, if that applies to a small percentage of our population, that'll be a positive thing, won't it?
Yeah, and something good has to come out of these things. And like we were saying earlier, either, you know, trouble brings the best or the worst out in people. And, you know, if it's made these events more interesting or more streamlined or whatever, then that's a start, isn't it?
Isn't it? Well, it's been an all right year, hasn't it? I mean, and that's a hard thing to say. And there'd be so many people who'd shoot us down for saying that. But yeah. But in reality, for us, and that you can know, you know, for us, it's been an all right year for what we do. And I never thought that would be the case. Back in when we started this in May, I can remember vividly the day that Boris stood up for the first time and said we're going into lockdown. And I remember the run up to that, and we heard it. We were following Italy, weren't we? We were 2 weeks behind Italy. And we were hearing about all the keep in touch with a lot of French people, and they're all saying, you know, stay at home. You're not behaving as well as the French. And we were like, will it, won't it? We might be okay. Don't know. And the whole world was a bit like that, wasn't it? And then we had our York Sportive, and we put a few extra measures in place. Our understanding of it was a bit limited then. And I remember there's a few people like stepping back. Oh, I don't want to get coronavirus. And it, you know, it was, that's a bit weird, but the whole world became like them. We did York, but we still had 1,000 people. We did the new Tour of the Lancashire Sportive, and I remember thinking, will the Lancashire event go ahead? And that was on a Sunday, And then on a Tuesday, Boris stands up and says, you can't, we're going to lockdown on Friday, was it, I think. And we had to cancel the daffodils. And I remember that. I'll always remember that, the news of that, and just thinking, we're not going to get through this. We've had it. I remember saying to my wife, we've had it.
Yeah.
And so now to say it's actually been an all right year, we've done well. I think that isn't a flippant, daft statement. It is the case. And a lot of people who've supported us, without the support of other people, and I know I said, especially at the beginning, I said this a huge amount, but without the support of those people, we would have been finished. That is for sure, and we'll be forever grateful. And I'm sure in 10 years' time, I'll remember that as well as I do today, because it's a huge thing.
We haven't talked greatly about the kind of bike giveaways that you've been doing, but that has been kind of your lifeline, really, hasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's more complicated than it probably appears on the surface.
Yeah.
So we created the Dream Bike Society because it was just, we used to raffle stuff and we did it as like a skills-based competition, and it was just to generate a little bit of extra income. And then when the pandemic broke, we just did one of our scheduled raffles, and it went mental, and we never foresaw it. And then we did another one, and that went mental as well. So we thought, right, we need to handle this a little bit of a different way. So we created the Dream Bike Society, and that is, it's a small society lottery that does work for sports events. And so the funds that we generate that are to enable sports events to continue, and as well as that, we thought the local bike shops would struggle, and it was a big part of supporting them, but in reality that absolutely wasn't the case. They've had their biggest year ever, but there was that element of it, and also to give people bikes, and of course we don't vet who enters, but loads of people have entered, and the story behind it is unbelievable. The guy just last week, the guy said he's never had a nice bike. He was going to buy himself a nice bike this summer. Everybody was buying bikes. He wants to buy a nice bike. Loves cycling, not a racing cyclist or even a sporty rider, but watches a tour, loves it. And he went to buy it. He'd chosen a bike, and then he lost his job. So it's part of the pandemic impacted.
Wow.
Lost his job, cancelled the order. And I don't know what led him to buy a ticket, but he bought a ticket for the raffle. And he won. And I remember when he rings some people who's lost for words and he couldn't really speak. And I had the chat with him afterwards. And he'd only bought a ticket on, I think, Thursday. He ordered the bike on Monday morning, and it came yesterday. And we got these pictures of him. And it's unbelievable. To do that means so much. It's just brilliant. So yeah, that's been a big part, like a byproduct of the year in a strange way.
And it's given you some consistency as well, hasn't it, with regards to kind of, right, I'm doing this every week, this is something I got to do, and that helps, doesn't it?
It did, it did do, certainly. I used to do it in my garage, and I can, through every day we were doing something and got in the garage and promote it. It's been brilliant fun, and it continues as well.
I guess the challenge now is when things do go back to some kind of normality and we get busy, how do we continue podcasts and giveaways and bikes and things? But we will see. So watch this space, everybody.
We'll do our best. Yeah, we'll do our best.
Yeah, mate, it's been lovely looking back, and I thoroughly enjoyed having a listen to the podcast this morning and just kind of doing some notes and thinking, wow, 31 episodes. I think this is episode 32. Yeah.
I'm still hoping that the lad who I used to run the bike shop with has never listened to episode 1, because when I was quite damning of it, and
I remember that. Yeah.
We were rubbish. We really are.
Well, there you go. It has been lovely to look back, mate. I hope you have a fantastic Christmas.
You too.
I know it's not going to be the same. I know we're all talking about how we actually navigate this Christmas, but the fact is, things do start again next year, and hopefully with a bit more hope and with a bit more positivity. And we'll see what happens next year.
We will. Merry Christmas, everybody.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
We'll see you.
Have a brilliant Christmas, guys.
Cheers, guys. Thanks for listening.
Cheers. Bye.